Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. And in this video, we're going to be looking at this film. So this is Escape to Witch Mountain. Now this is, I believe it's 1970. It's a 1975 Disney film, loosely, I mean this very loosely, based on a book by Alexander H. Keyes by the same name that came out in 1968. Now I've already covered the book, so be sure to check out that. This is different. Over the differences in a minute between this and the book. So in this story, you have two young children, Tony and Tia, and they're brought to an orphanage after their adoptive parents have died, and they have powers. So basically, Tia communicates with her brother telepathically. Tony, with the help of a harmonica, is basically he moves things around, so he has telekinesis. Tia also communicates with empathy with animals, and she experiences premonitions. So all she can remember about her childhood is she keeps having flashbacks to them being in the water with an older man and being rescued. And eventually she remembers that they weren't speaking the same language, and it was this uncle by the name of Benet, and she also carries around this star case that eventually reveals a map. So as this is being revealed to her, they're in the orphanage. They're kind of, because they use their powers a little bit, they're finding a few difficulties. Then when they're at a camp, she basically helps rescue this wealthy attorney by the name of Duranian, and he goes back to his boss, Aristotle Bolt, who wants these children. Apparently he's been looking all over for these children. It's not really explained how he knows about them and why he's looking for these kids with powers, or he's just a crazy rich guy. So Duranian goes to the orphanages, convinces them that he's their long-lost uncle, and brings them to Bolt. And basically he's wealthy, it's a castle, the kids are kind of taken in, but it turns out that they're watching them on closed-circuit television and realize they have these powers, and again, he wants them. And Tony's able to, he's also able to hear at long distances, so can Tia. And so they overhear them in another room saying they're pretty much going to take them to this island where they cannot escape. So that night they're locked in their rooms. The children powers and get themselves out, along with Tia's cat. She has a black cat who shows up, and they run away. And they escape with a horse that they had given Tia. She's able to communicate with animals. So, and again, they have magical powers, so they can undo locks. They escape. They eventually hide in a Winnebago owned by a man by the name of Jason Day. He's an older, kind of cranky guy. And they kind of reveal their powers to him, and he helps them. And they're trying to get to this very specific place they found on the star case that has a map, and Tia starts having a few more of her premonitions. So he helps them, and she kind of figures out that, and Tony starts to remember things as well. They're aliens. The crash that they were in was a spaceship. So they crash landed into the ocean. So, and their home was essentially being destroyed, I believe is what they say. That's what's in the book. Then I'll go over to, their own planet was dying. The survivors made their way to Witch Mountain. So they get up, they're up in the mountains. Eventually, O'Day has family in this area. And so he drops the kids off and goes to there. The kids are captured by the sheriff. They escape. They release this bear. They had terrorized the sheriff with a coat on a coat hanger. And basically the entire town of Little White Hicks think they're monsters, and they are aware of Witch Mountain, and they're scary people. So they're off trying to chase them, along with both this attorney and his boss, who are hoping these guys aren't going to shoot these kids. because that's not what they want. They want the kids alive. So you have a bunch of car chases going on. Eventually, the kids get back to O'Day. He helps them, of course, then they show up because they do background checks, find out he has a brother. His brother's on vacation. So they get escaping again. They get somewhere else. They make a phone call because they remember their last name is Castaway. And they get in contact with basically the people, their family on Witch Mountain. And they tell them kind of what to do. And there's another car chase, which eventually results in the Winnebago flying and the helicopter that Bolt is in turning upside down. Strange thing happened. The kids eventually land the Winnebago, and their uncle shows up and takes them up in a spaceship, and they leave. So that is essentially the end of this film. Now there is a second film, I think, or maybe Disney does a couple of things. Return from Witch Mountain. That is not based on a book. I'm probably not going to cover that. I remember it bits and pieces. It's very, very weird. This is a very good family film. It's a little bit it's science fiction, which is what the book is. It's very, very old Disney because, again, it came out in 1975. So it's classical Disney. In looking into the background, the actress who plays Tia, oddly enough, is she's aunt to Paris Hilton, oddly enough. Paris Hilton's mother is this actress's, what is her name? Kim Richards. So she's Paris Hilton's mother's half-sister. She's the older half-sister. So the boy child, Ike Eisenmann, he acted for a little while into his teens and then he retired. Now both of them have cameo roles in the modern rendition of this, which stars The Rock. So yeah, there's that. I will probably unlikely cover that. Maybe, we'll see. But unfortunately, there's also a bunch of other actors that I'm not aware of because it was the 70s and that was essentially before my time. I remember watching this on Disney. So, Kyle Richards was apparently Tia Malone's younger sister, was her, basically, who played her in the few of the flashbacks because she had to be smaller. So, that is the extent of this. Now, compare it to the book. I've been covering a lot of Disney recreations of books lately, so I'm noticing patterns. Disney has a tendency to take the title and the general concept of something and then make something completely new out of this. Walt Disney himself did this with Mary Poppins, which is a whole nother story, and I'm not going to go into it right now because P.L. Travers was a horrible, horrible human being. One of these days I might cover Disney's Mary Poppins. It is a favorite, despite the fact that I'm, again, on concept, not fond of Disney Corporation. So, back onto this. So in the book, there's quite a few differences. There's a lot of differences. For one thing, Tia does not speak in the entire book. She's mentally in contact with her brother. That's about it. So basically, she talks to her brother mind to mind, but that's it. And they actually do have to be physically, not necessarily physically seeing each other, but they have to be in line of sight. So he has to be able to look out a window to general direction of where the heck she's at in the books, or in the book. So that's kind of how it works. So again, I have this weird feeling they're a little bit younger in the book. He is never revealed. It's also why it's not said specifically. They're not sent to an orphanage. It's not nice. It's essentially they're sent to a children's home, more for delinquents. And it's implied that they were not with a loving adoptive family in the book. They had been dropped off with a little old lady who had been known to take in children, and then she's hit by a car. So that's how she dies. They weren't exactly in a loving home. It's not implied that she was unloving, but they were living. But it's not implied. I get the feeling they're closer to being in a city, just by where they're at. It's not the nicest of areas because Tony's known to be fighting. And the social worker who brings them there doesn't particularly like them. So she seems kind of nasty. In the film, it's nice and loving. They're sent to an orphanage. The woman waiting for them is comforting and nice. In the book, again, she runs a children's home for primarily delinquents. So yeah, she's kind of harsh. The other major difference is they add this weird, there's no real lawyer. The spectrum is the guy who's looking for them, who pretends to be their uncle, who actually gets legal custody of them. He's being paid by other people that they're never explained. It's never mentioned. It's like they're trying to capture him for some reason, because some people know whether they know what they are, they know they have powers, but it's never explained. It's like a phantom, basically phantom group, why this guy by the name Duranian is looking for them. And they do go to a camp, but they run into a nun who mentions that somebody has been calling around looking for these 2 orphan children. And I believe they go by the last name of Castaway. They kind of figure that out. It's like, okay, this kind of makes sense. So they eventually, Duranian comes to grab them. They realize they can't go with him, and they escape, and they run to a priest that they know. And he's the one who helps them. He puts them on a bus. He sends them off. And you don't have as many car chases, let alone helicopters turning upside down. Mostly it's just the village where the girl, similar to the scene in the film where they chase off the sheriff where they've been imprisoned and escape the bear. That happens. They get to the priest who's waiting for them, and it's his either family or friends that are up there. And he rescues them. And then they're able to make a phone call to the organization that is looking for them. And you don't really see this. It's not they finally figure out it's their grandfather, and he dies. In the film, their uncle drowns supposedly and comes back to life and says, it's like, I guess I talked to sharks. Like, yeah, no. In the book, he's shot because they are crash landed during the Hungarian War. So, during a war in Hungary, and they remember this. So, they were very, very young. And then he's shot, and they get on a ship, and he eventually dies. And then they're dropped off at this woman's place, because I'm guessing it's a transatlantic thing. Obviously, they're traveling across Hungary, because Hungary is landlocked. I've been to that area of the country. I've never been to Hungary. I was in Romania, but Hungary is landlocked. I'm guessing they escaped somewhere else to get to a ship, to get to the ocean, to get out. But nonetheless, that's the book. I reviewed that. The film is very, very quirky. But yeah, you have the whole bunch of car chases which never really happen. And you don't really see... Eventually the kids are taken off into a spaceship. You don't even see it. The children disappear. They get out of the car. They say goodbye because they're being mentally told what to do by their own people. And they go to a cliff and disappear, and then they see the spaceship shooting off. And it's very much implied that the priest is going to meet up with them later. But there is no second book that's connected to this. The author did write a book rendition of the Disney film, of the Return from Witch Mountain. But the film in this case came first. So that sequel film came first, and then the author wrote the book for it, rather than writing a sequel for his own story, so to speak. So, again, it's very different. It's a good film. Again, it's 70s, so it's 1970s. It's a nostalgia thing. Yes, you can tell by some of the effects. So, it's a good family film if you're looking for something that's completely, utterly safe for kids. That's an introduction to science fiction. The book is very good as well. If you like to do comparisons, if you're looking at old films and how they do a lot of the old effects, yeah, you can tell they're not on location in a lot of places. And obviously they're doing green screens because they have a helicopter upside down. And no, the physics makes no sense because the helicopter lands upside down. Helicopters cannot fly upside down. It goes against the laws of physics, but it's a strange Disney science fiction film, so you suspend disbelief. But again, it's a fun thing if you want to look up movies that defy the laws of physics, at least in the 70s. So it's corny. I thoroughly admit it's corny. It's a good science fiction film for the 70s, which are very, very common. It's very weird in comparison to the book. Neither one is better than the other. So they're pretty well equal. I do like the book, but there's a lot of loose threads with the book. And obviously the book is darker. The book is much, much darker than this. But this is Disney. It's Disney being Disney. That just seems to be what it is. And when I looked into this, this is a film that was made when Disney was kind of trying to reinvent itself after the death of Walt. So Walt Disney had passed, and they were trying to do different things. And of course, this was before the Disney Renaissance hit, and their animation musicals were basically took off and saved the company. After Cinderella did it. Prior to that, if only Disney didn't survive, the world might be a better place, but who knows. So that's it for this book review. Great film. I got it from my library. You can probably find it in a variety of other places. I wish I could get access to the Disney's TV film, but it seems to be very hard to access. I think I found a copy of it to be able to screen on YouTube. But apparently it's also, I don't think it's streaming on Disney Plus either, but I don't have those streaming services. There's no reason for it right now, or possibly ever. We will see. It's doubtful. But if you like what you see, be sure, one, to check out the book review, and check out the rest of my channel by liking and subscribing. I do a lot of film and book comparisons. I do a lot of children's books. We're a secular homeschooling family, so a lot of my thought processes has to do with how this would work in a homeschooling or a learning environment. So I do a little bit of travel stuff for kids that will increase more as my child gets older. She's young, in toddler age at this time, along with a lot of the secular homeschooling stuff. As we start using things and doing things more in the education realm, that's going to grow. So otherwise, be sure to check out a lot of my book reviews, my film reviews, and various other travel reviews and things. So thank you.